Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we're going to talk about a new conference that just came out. We're going to play you clips of Brian Brooks, who is on fire. This guy is absolute. I feel at this point, Brian Brooks in the regulatory side of this whole equation is the one that is just dragging people to a finish line. It's going to be very powerful clips that I'm going to play for you from him. And we're also going to crush some FUD. And then we're going to talk about a quick comment from the ECB and Christine Lagarde. We're going to cover an older comment from Jerome Powell that sets everything up, and a list of the 30 most important, systemically important banks by the Financial Stability Board. What is the Financial Stability Board? Well, let's go ahead and get this thing going, and we'll see you inside. Here we go.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
All right, welcome back to the show. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradley above at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here. Well, look what we have here. Peter Brandt urges the SEC to declare XRP as a security. Now, listen, I have to say I've had a lot of respect for Peter Brandt in the trading world, chart reading, making calls. Unfortunately, he's missed this one by a mile, With the utmost respect, Peter Brandt, you've got this one wrong, my friend. And not only is it not a security, I feel that it is a currency, and I feel that sometime in the not too distant future, we're all going to find out that it is a currency, because at the end of the day, XRP, per the discussion I had with Greg Kidd and many others on this channel, XRP doesn't work unless it's a security. You can't have it be a bridge asset to all the money of the world if it's going to turn out to be that you have to pay capital gains on that at the end of the year. Now, what sense does that make? Oh, that's right. None. Just like the fact that XRP is not a security. We move on. Let's go ahead because we got a lot to look at. I'm telling you, these clips I'm going to play you that came just now, moments ago, from Brian Brooks. You're going to want to see every one of them. We will recalibrate our instruments as appropriate to unfolding situations. Now tell me which highly sustainable, highly liquid, highly scalable instrument is locked in and ready to help us get out of this mess. There is only one, XRP. Shout out to Brown Crypto Kid. He nails it with that comment. Let's listen to just a piece of this.
But it is important to ensure that financing conditions remain favorable. And this is why the Governing Council announced last month that we will recalibrate our instruments as appropriate to respond to the unfolding situation. The Council is unanimous in its commitment to ensure that financing conditions remain favorable to support economic activity and counteract the negative impact of the pandemic on the projected inflation path. In the weeks to come, we will have more information on which to base our decision about this recalibration, including more evidence on the success of the new lockdown measures in containing the virus, a new set of macroeconomic projections, and more clarity on fiscal plans and the prospects for vaccine rollouts.
And that pretty much sums up the comments. And I know she went towards the pandemic towards the end of that, but they've used the pandemic. What did Christine Lagarde say out of her own mouth previously? Never let a good crisis go to waste. And it looks like she's making good on those terms. All of this is about leaning heavily in, whether it's due to the pandemic or due to going green and the zero carbon footprint, which is not a bad idea, by the way, for all of us. But the reality is they're leaning in on these things to really show that this needs to happen because of those things. But the reality is there was a liquidity crisis that existed on this planet before any pandemic showed up or before any need to try to get to a zero carbon footprint. Now, all of those being good ideas as well, you get no argument out of me, but they never seem to talk about the real issue that was always here before anything else showed up. That's a fact, Jack. Now let's keep it moving here. Mr. Powell, Gold Telegraph says, let's remind us why we are here, right? Let's have a little reminder. Now you have to understand Gold Telegraph, obviously pushing gold in the metals market. But I would broaden this to understand that it's not just about the metals market. It's about assets. And if you don't have them, trouble coming. Here we go.
Simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it?
I love that. That's another way to think about it. Oh, is there another way to think about it?
Come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
Appreciate that. They also distribute real cash, and we do that through the regular banks, as opposed to what? Pool halls? You know, it's amazing to me how stupid they feel we are. I tell you. Well, so basically just printed money. Yeah, well, that's another way to look at it. Don't get me going. At the end of the day, I know it seems like a thankless job. I got a feeling working at the Fed is almost like the way it used to be at the MVA, right? You know, nobody really says thank you. Look, again, all of this points to assets. There's where, it's almost like, it's crypto's in the early days, risk asset, right? You're taking a risk in being in this market. Things have already taken a huge shift, whether you're talking about Bitcoin or other coins. And this is not financial advice, but there's been a shift in the markets that have gone from risk speculative assets to now a hedge, right? Mitigate my risk in the traditional markets because they know they can't tell you what day, and I can't either, but trouble is coming. Now, just to clear this up, too, when they said we can print it digitally, talking about digital dollars, they're not talking about creating a digital dollar on the distributed ledger technology blockchain in that conversation. So I just want to be clear about that. Let's keep going. So this here is from Michael Val 5 Links, and this is a great reminder. Just remember that when they start throwing around the number trillions, when they're talking about how much they've printed or how much debt is in the country, like 26 trillion in debt. Look at this. This pallet has $100 million on it. It neatly fits 100 million. They started with 100 million because $1 million didn't look impressive enough. So that pallet you see in the first one is 100 million. Here in image 2, you see this is $1 billion. Now we're getting somewhere. We have several pallets. We have 10 pallets with $1 billion on them. Now, if we look at what $1 trillion looks like, you have to notice, well, wow. And right down here in this image is the man standing. And if you look even closer, you see that this is actually 2 layers of pallets stacked up all the way around. That's how big 1 trillion is. 26 of those is the debt we're in right now as a country here in the U.S., right? So I think when this is, I just thought this was a great visual. Shout out to Michael Val 5 Links for that one. And speaking of which, that leads us into another great visual, which is the Financial Stability Board publishes a 2020 list of global systemically important banks. The 30 banks in the list remain unchanged. The minimum capital buffers for 4 banks have been changed based on lists published today as of January 2022. All right, so going into this, I pulled this list up, and here's what I found interesting about this list. I want to shout out some of these names on here and just remind you of the 30 most important, systemically important global banks. Think about how many are tied in with Ripple, either directly or indirectly. Citigroup, yes. HSBC, yes. JP Morgan, I don't know if it's a direct connection, but, we've got people come to work for us at Ripple there, from there, I believe. Bank of America, yes. I'm going with the patents and not just the asset, right? Bank of China. We know that we have relationships with different banks in China, whether it be Bank of China or not. Barclays, yes. BNP Paribas, absolutely. China Construction Bank. Let's see. Deutsche Bank, yes. Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. Mitsubishi, yes. Agricultural Bank of China. Again, we have affiliation with China. I don't know if it's those specifically. We'll look at another list here in just one second. Bank of New York Mellon, yes. In fact, BNY Mellon is an early investor in Ripple. Credit Suisse, yes. Goldman Sachs, we've got people that work for us from there. We had just recently had somebody there to head up XRP Global Markets. Group A, PB, or BPCE. Credit out, was it Agricole? Ing Bank, yes. Morgan Stanley, Royal Bank of Canada, yes. Santander, yes. Society General, I believe that is a yes. Standard Charter, absolutely a yes. State Street, And Sumitomo Mitsui FG, I believe that is also a yes. And Toronto Dominion is TD Bank, that is absolutely a yes. UBS is a yes. Unicredit and Wells Fargo. Are you picking up on a narrative here? The Financial Stability Board, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is an international body that provides regulations, guidelines, and recommendations because they were developed in 2009 at the G20. So it is a regulatory agency developed by the G20 to make recommendations for the entire financial system internationally. This list is highly tied into whether it is, certainly I don't believe it's every one of them, but is absolutely, without question, the majority of them have a direct or indirect relationship with Ripple and or XRP. So let's keep this going. We look at the list from XRP Arcade. I hope you're doing well, my brother. And I'm just going to show you some of these on here that resemble the list. Mitsubishi, right? JP Morgan, no. HSBC, yes. Bank of America, yes. BNP Paribas is a yes, even though it's not on there. Credit Agricole, yes. And then Citigroup, we actually do have a connection at this point. Japan Post Bank, I don't know if that was on there, but you see all of these. Yeah, Sumitomo, yes, absolutely. Financial Group, yes. Banco Santander, you get the idea. I mean, it's all right here. Barclays, you can see the lineup. Royal Bank of Canada, Ing, yes. Toronto Dominion Bank, so on and so on. UBS, Unicredit, yeah. The majority of the list. And what we don't know, I'd rather think in my mind, I think it's actually a safer bet to assume that that's an NDA that we don't know about. And that's probably a yes, too, for the 5 or 6 out of 30 that we're not able to confirmed. So the Financial Stability Board shows you the 30 most systemically important global banks, and the majority of them are working directly or indirectly with Ripple. What else can you say? Again, there's Credit Suisse talking about Ripple as an example for tech for banks to cut costs and increase revenue from Ripple Insights. This is BNP Paribas. I just pulled up a couple right here just so you could see. Yada, yada, yada. The patents from Bank of America. You get this. What I want to pull up now is I want to pull up these clips. I have a few clips for you to see, and they're not very long, but they're just quick little clips. And I want to start with clip number 2 here from the Credit Suisse conference webinar that had Brian Brooks from the OCC in it this morning, and man, was he laying it down. Let's hear this first exchange right here.
Yeah, well, so this is the thing, and this is not just a crypto comment. It's a broader comment about our payment system and fintech generally. But in the United States, we have one of the most, on the one hand, fragmented, and on the other hand, antiquated payment systems in the world. So a data point that I saw the other day, just provided to me by some of my bank regulatory colleagues here, is in the U.S., we spend the equivalent of 2% of GDP on payment processing. So just imagine a 2% tax on all economic activity in the United States, just because it's so slow to send stuff across the ACH network and so expensive to send stuff across the Fedwire network.
Now, just that thought alone makes me think lean into the conversation that Greg Kidd and I had the other day, where we talked about the idea of a fair use tax and micro taxation happening on these transactions internationally, and everybody getting a small little taste. And these transactions, as they have talked about, once we start using this new financial system, the XRP ledger, the ILP, and all these new blockchain networks to make payments, it will increase the velocity of money. It will increase the benefits, the savings, the scalability, right? The customer usage, all of these things. And because of that, you start saying to yourself, if you look at it like you take the 2% harm that you're ingesting because of the old system being just outdated and antiquated, and put a 2% tax on those transactions, or even a 1% tax on all of those transactions as they begin to compound and multiply, you have like a fair use transaction system that really starts to fall in line with kind of what the OECD recommendations have been for a 2-pillar tax system internationally for financial payments. So just a thought on that. Right there. Let's keep going.
Versus the UK, where real-time payments exist today, or even in Lithuania, let alone Singapore or China, all parts of the world that have a real-time payment system. The solution, I believe, in the US for a real-time payment system is not to spend another multi-year process having the government build us a system. That would be like asking the FCC to build cell phones, right? That's not what the government does well. The government's good at establishing frameworks, and we have existing real-time payment networks called blockchains. That's what these networks are all about, is to immediately validate transactions on a consensus algorithm. And so to me, the way the US wins this battle is not to try and catch up to governments that move faster than our government. It's to do what we do well: harness our dynamic innovation, risk-taking economy, and let the private sector build that network, the same as we let the private sector build all kinds of different communication tools without thinking that the FCC had to do it for us. That's the way network effects work in this country, and that's how we'll win.
We'd still be with big blocks of, brick holding up to our...
We sure would. We'd be lobbying the government to see if they could upgrade it to make the brick slightly smaller in 4 years.
Right. So, thank you for that. And the one thing I should say is that the Clearinghouse, which is a group of largish banks in the United States, already has built a real-time payments process, and
They've already built the real-time payments process, but listen to what he says here about how it's been intentionally held up. And you already know where Brian Brooks has made it abundantly clear that the federal government and these sectors like, even like the Fed, which is a private organization, but nevertheless are not innovators and creators of things. So listen.
And they haven't, Paul. I'll just interrupt for 1 second and say we applaud that. We think that's terrific. Unfortunately, the only people who are allowed access to it are banks.
Right. That's right. But and even at that, the Fed has basically told them to stand down and wait until the Fed can develop their own thing in 4 years, which will be creaky. And
wait till the government and all its benevolence delivers to you the bounty of the land. Right.
Oh, Brian Brooks is on fire in this thing, laying it down. I mean, he's just telling you, if that is not the best high dollar sarcasm you've ever heard in your life, he really gets this, and he is as frustrated, it seems to me, trying to make people understand that this is no different than the cell phone industry. And I think he's going to get somewhere. I really, really do. Let's listen to this next clip here. Clip 4 is where we want to go. So here we go right here. It's about 1:30.
But look, Paul, that brings me back to, so we were just talking about the political implications of the election. So people need to decide how they feel about that kind of thing. Do we believe that the right role of the government is to bring down ruinous penalties on people who are trying to build a valuable network that millions of people want? Is that the appropriate role of government in a free society? And I think we need to be able to talk about that openly. It is another reason, though, why there are ways of using self-help to mitigate that. So, for example, as you know, as a former commissioner, the penalties for intentional violations, willful violations, are a lot different from the restitutionary remedies that are available for unintentional, misconduct. A, so you can mitigate that through process, and B, there are ways of structuring these things because, again, most of what the SEC looks at these days is more about the original distribution of the token.
Now listen to what he says here very carefully. He talks about the original distribution of the token. Now listen to the example he gives.
Than the token itself. There are ways, as I've said in other settings, to address that. So for example, maybe the right thing to do is to restrict secondary trading.
Restrict secondary trading. So you stop trading on an asset. Listen to this.
Until such time as the network is built. And so you can adopt sort of like a mutual ownership structure for a period of time, which is partly an exemption to the securities offering laws. And then you can demutualize and do a stock offering later with the blessing of the SEC when you think you have something that is fully built out and provides utility. I mean, there are creative solutions. So this is why the Vivians of the world exist, is to not just tell you that thing's unlawful, but to say, hey, here are 5 solutions where you can reduce the risk to acceptable parameters and do something great.
Right. And I should give a plug to a current. I
mean, the guy's vision about handle these things in this space are remarkable. And, I have to say, there's always been a part of me that thinks about the idea about XRP at some point being in a trading halt potentially, because if you're going to bring an enormous amount of utility to the network in a synchronized way, there may come a moment where you have to do a secondary market trading halt in order to adjust for that level of utility making its way to the network. That's something to keep an eye on. Let's go to clip number 6 here, because that was clip number... What was that? Clip number 4? No, clip number 5. Let's play this really quickly. This is about quick comments on security tokens and alternative trading systems. Very, very interesting comment here. Listen.
Adrian,
I would throw out one comment on that. Maybe Paul is more the expert, but one comment is, there was a weirdly unnoticed but really important SEC no action letter just a few weeks ago talking about the idea that now we can have crypto, I won't say broker dealers, but crypto ATSs, which are the equivalent, an alternative trading system. And once you have, the problem with security tokens has always been there's no place for them to trade, because the SEC essentially would not allow a broker dealer that had traditional assets in it to intermingle that business with a digital asset business. But now that crypto ATSs have been authorized, there's no reason that the current exchanges couldn't establish an ATS, provide custody through, for example, a national bank, and actually operate a security token business. So I would say a huge blocker has been unblocked.
That's a massive statement right there, what he just said. That is a massive statement right there, that they could connect by building another platform for security tokens, tie that into a traditional bank, which has been cleared to deal with digital assets, and get it all worked together. And as far as he's concerned, you are able to take off and go to the races. Okay, so just 2 more quick comments here. I think they're both under a minute. Here we go.
Estimated to take 4 years until 2024.
2024, yeah, exactly.
This is where they're talking about being ready in 2024. Watch Brian Brooks's face right here.
Yeah. But I think that they were hoping to at least get something started before that, but 2024 is the final date.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
He's disgusted. He's just... No, that isn't going to work. 2024 is like being in second place. It's, what second place is? Second place is the first loser, right? And Brian Brooks realizes that.
Well, it seems to be a magic date, Paul. That's when we're going to get faster payments from the Fed. Also, 2024 is a big year. Wait for it. Yeah. Remember when, as a country, we didn't wait for things; we just built them.
Sounds like
the next election is.
Sounds like the Mayan calendar, Paul Atkins. Oh, I love Brian Brooks's fire, man. He's on fire today. Remember when we didn't wait for things as a country? We just built them. I mean, what a great comment. No doubt about it. You can't lead from behind. One more quick comment right here from today's conference.
Put in before I.
I probably said enough words so far. I'll just maybe close by saying this stuff is important, and at some level it's inevitable, and it would be unfortunate if we allowed our global competitors to own this space. We should learn from the early lessons of other countries and be a fast follower, since it's probably already too late to be a leader on this.
Yeah. Well, good. I think the United States, can be a leader, but we're going to have to be very focused on this, and the regulators are going to have to kind of be much more together. And we'll see what happens in the new year, who the president will be, what the administration will look like, and all of that. So thank you very much for all of you participating. I do want to give a plug for the audience, actually.
And there it is. So, look, at the end of the day, this was just remarkable exchange by all of them. And I love that Brian Brooks really impressed upon all of them the idea and notion that, maybe we've already lost the opportunity to be a leader. And I know that Paul Atkins did not like hearing that at all. And he was like, no, I still think we could be a leader. And I think that's the kind of pressure and incentive Brian Brooks needs to continue to put on anybody that is in this meaningful conversation that can have an impact on where the United States goes to get the clarity we need. Remember, while all this is happening, because that was Credit Suisse today in a conference today, and we are days, if not a couple weeks away from understanding whether the Federal Reserve will be expanding their definition of money to explicitly include virtual currencies. And that also goes for FinCEN. However, I will say that specifically when it comes to XRP, FinCEN back in 2015 absolutely defined XRP as currency. There's no question about it. All right, that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Hit that like and subscribe. That is the fire from Brian Brooks, and we all got to keep that fire stoked, because if Brian's that much on fire and that hell bent to get something done, I know we're all right there with him. So maybe even tag Brian and just let him know politely that we're with him and we see his fight and where he's going. And listen, he's doing so many things at the OCC, even outside of the scope of crypto. And it's remarkable what he's doing there. And I hope he gets a chance to continue to do it. So no matter what happens with the U.S. elections, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below. Please check out the links in the description box and the comment section. I use all those products and services. They are trusted links, so you can trust that you can click on those and it will take you to the real company for the real product or service that you may want or need. I'll catch all of you on the next one.